And my hair is a bit of a mess right now, but whatever. I don't really care. When I do, but I don't. So, anyways, hi. If you're watching this in the future, my name is Katarina from Katarina's Garage. Um, I do these lives whenever I feel like it, to be honest. It's just one of these things where it's all over the map of when I actually do these. I will say that my health journey has been a little interesting lately. Concerning, well, a lot of things. Hopefully, though, that the quality is okay, because I can't see that from here. Just like when I was did my last live, when I was, oh, did this freeze? It looks like it did. Darn it! Oh well. No big deal. But, yeah, because, like, last time quality was a big issue, so hopefully now that I'm on Wi-Fi and at home with good signal here, that the quality is much better. Excellent. Excellent. Glad to hear it, because, yeah, it's just one of those things. You know what? And hope you're all having a fantastic Friday evening. Mine was all over the place my Friday afternoon, in fact. I had high blood pressure. I had a very high heart rate today. That was fun. And when I was trying to swat at a wasp flying around me, I smacked myself in the face so hard with my phone that I actually left a bruise. Actually, it does kind of show up. I don't know if it really shows up on camera that well. But, yeah, that freaking hurt. Like, I hit it so hard that it bruised. It's just... I feel so stupid about that. But, yeah. However, at least now, though, with my health stuff, that it's fine. But, some people might, but most people know better. Because, as well, there you go. I'm abused. That's what it is. I'm abusing myself. You know, just, boom. 100% did that on purpose, really? God. It gave me quite a decent headache, too. Oh, and there goes... Well, that's... So, you know, I've had my heart rate jump around a bunch today, too, which has been interesting. Because even, like, when I started this live, my heart rate was at... 67, and it's jumping between 70 to like 93 at the moment. So that's fun. But so now that we have good quality on live, though, because I mean the heart rate's a little concerning, but it's not too bad. Like it's not high or anything, so it's just jumping around, which is annoying when it does that, because I'm not a big fan when it does that. However, like today, because it was kind of interesting, I go out, because actually this weekend I would have actually been at, the Albers family reunion, but unfortunately that did not work out because of the way my health has been for the past, few weeks. I elected to stay home, but I still went actually to, the early festivities for the pig roast at my buddy Greg's place. Which there's going to be a pig roast tomorrow, and it's a fantastic time. I really can't wait. I just hope that it doesn't do a downpour like it did today. Because they put a little dampener on it, and to be honest, I left because I was feeling like crap, and I really just... I don't know what it was. But once I got some food into me and got some other drinks into me, whatever else, I was fine. But because my water and Powerade wasn't quite doing it for me there, so I had to... it's interesting, actually. I came home and I drank a can of pop, and that actually made a difference. Plus, I got some food on top of that, and it was all good. So it's kind of interesting how I'm having to do stuff that's not normal for most people. Because normally, with most people, you're wanting to cut down on your salt intake. Well, with me, not so much. But that's okay. You know what? I'm actually trying to get more salt in my diet because it actually does make a difference with me, or at least for the most part, it does. I start to feel a little better with it, which is weird because most people with high blood pressure, you want to avoid salt, right? Salt, sugar, all that stuff. You want to avoid it. But for some reason with me, it actually helps bring it down, which makes zero sense whatsoever. But you know what? That's fine. I will take it because it means I can have some stuff that tastes good the whole time. So, you know, I just gotta watch some of it though because if I have too much of it, I get nauseated, and it's just a fun situation that way. But yeah. So, there isn't really. There is actually something exciting that I figured out, and I'm gonna maybe try tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, they have tested for diabetes multiple times throughout the years. Never found that. Um, I have a phone call with a doctor on Tuesday, so for some blood work, maybe they found something in that. I don't think so because they didn't tell me at the hospital when I had my blood work back. And when I checked my app, because I have the HealthLink app, that didn't show anything that was pertinent to say, hey, this is bad. So everything was within normal levels. So that's the weird part when I got that done. And they got my blood pulled out of me I think it was about an hour after I got into the room. So, yeah. Which I thought they would have, did the blood right away so that they could check for everything, but they didn't when I was in the hospital. Yeah, thanks, sweetie. I do appreciate it, and because my speculation is that this is kind of like a long COVID thing. Because after I got COVID, it just has gotten worse and worse and worse. So, and now I'm at a point where I don't know where exactly I'm at. We're still waiting to get a phone call from the hospital to say, hey, we have a Hollister device for you. Come down, and we'll go from there. But I don't know when that's gonna happen. I'm hoping, praying it's going to be this following week, because they only do it weekdays. So Monday to Friday, that's when they hand them out. But we'll see. Because I don't know. That's kind of the next journey or the next thing in my journey to figure out what the hell's wrong with me. Because I've been dealing with issues for years, and this is just the latest culmination of my issues. And this is really bad. Because most of my stuff I can push through. To a certain degree. It's made it difficult to do most things, but now it's, nearly impossible for me to do things. Driving outside of town, that's a no-go. Just due to what happened last time, right? And even being a passenger in a vehicle outside of town is rough. So that's going to be something that I hope to God is not a thing in the future, because otherwise, all of my plans are done. I will, almost never see most of my family. I won't see very many friends anymore. And, I'll be relegated to being in town here. Unless if I move to a bigger city, and even then, I don't want that stuff to happen while I'm driving through Calgary. That's just dangerous, right? So, I don't know. I hope we can figure something out soon. Because, yeah, my blood pressures were all over the place today. Because I kept checking them as I was talking to my bestie, and she was giving me advice, whatever else, because she's been dealing with similar issues. Hers are a little more extreme than mine, but I was standing up, and I check my, I mean, I can discuss more about the Vrock, actually, if you want. But, to be honest, there's not really much of an update there. Because the motor's still locked up. I can't really get it unlocked, it seems like. It needs too much work for me to really do too much to it. Unfortunately, it's just, I would love to, but also like money is not really there for me at the moment. So up next is really just figuring out, because like there's a guy that I'm going to be trading that vehicle for, actually, because he had, or it's kind of weird because dealing with him is kind of a pain. Yeah, it's a guy I've dealt with before. We've talked a bunch. I've gotten parts off of him in the past, but he is a pain to deal with. Not gonna lie. But he was initially gonna pick it up this weekend, but because of the pig roast, I said, maybe next weekend or even next week is totally fine with me. I'm free just about any day, so come out, no big deal. He's in Spruce Grove, so it's a little bit of a trek for him. But I'm going to be trading the Vrock for something that, to me, I don't know if it's necessarily cooler, but it's a lot more fun. And this one doesn't run, but oddly enough, a friend of mine has parts, vehicles that we can make this thing run, I'm sure. Other than, well, I shouldn't say that. Because it doesn't have an ignition key. So there's that. However, we might just swap out the entire steering column for one of his because he's got parts vehicles. And now, the vehicle in question is actually, I'm not sure what year it is. It is like a... Talking to, actually, sort of a fan/friend of mine on Facebook, because he's a fan of the YouTube channel and everything, so he might even see this. We were talking about it, and he's a big Volkswagen nut, right? And this happens to be a Volkswagen Pan. But if you've ever heard of a Myers Manx, and for context, like Myers came out in 1964. Bruce Myers built the Myers Manx, and all it was a fiberglass body that you can put directly over top of a Volkswagen Beetle. So you take the body off of a Beetle, and you're left with this pan. And they call it a pan because it's not a frame per se. It's the entire floor structure of the car. It's all one piece, and then it envelops the suspension and the engine and transmission and all that stuff, right? It's really cool, really neat how you can actually take a Beetle apart like that, comparatively to other vehicles where the frame or the floor is part of the body as opposed to a part of the structural integrity of the car that way. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, so that it's not necessarily pre-unibody because there were unibodies that were out back then. But it's because the one thing is, like, a unibody is your frame is part of the body technically. You've got subframes up front and back that can be bolted on and off. This is the entire floor structure is all your structure in that. It's kind of an interesting design, and because of that, actually, and how well built original Beetles were, is when the Beetle was brand new, you could actually drive it on water and it would float, which is pretty cool that you could do that. And being that it's also they're air cooled as well with a little 4-cylinder, they could have a. When they first came out, it was a 1200cc, then they jumped to a 1300cc and a 1600cc as well. Throughout the years, they were all rear engine, so rear engine, rear wheel drive. But the thing is, with this one, it no longer has the original. It was probably a 1600cc, but it has something a lot cooler. But the interesting thing is, though, is seeing the parts and pieces that were kind of cobbled together to make this work. Because, so, like I mentioned, the kind of friend slash fan that I have, because he says we're friends, and I mean, to be honest, I consider him a friend too, so that's pretty cool. But he started out as a fan of the channel. So, which sounds familiar. But the one thing is that he is a big Volkswagen nut. Like, he used to rebuild bugs and stuff like that all the time. And so when I sent him the pictures of the vehicle, and he's just like, okay, so what he can tell from it, there's some weird stuff about it. Because it's got earlier taillights, like 64-ish style taillights in it, which, to be fair, you can put whatever taillights you want in them. It's not a big deal. I've seen people put Mustang taillights. I've seen people, which was very popular, I've seen people put Mercury Cougar taillights / Thunderbird taillights. Take your pick. You can do whatever on those. I've seen Corvair taillights as well, which are pretty neat when you see the Corvair taillights, actually, because it's kind of a rare thing to do. But, so, he noticed that right away. Just looking at what he could see of the frame structure as well as the wheels, that it is a 67 or later body, or 67 or later pan, I should say, not body. And being that the steering column that it has actually has a key that goes into the column, it is a 74 or later column. So it's got a little bit of cobbled togetherness of it, which is interesting. I mean, there's nothing bad about that, because everything is interchangeable with bugs. It's kind of neat that way, or at least a lot of it is. But the drivetrain in it, and I don't know what transmission it has. It's a manual transmission, but what manual, I don't know, because it has a Corvair flat 6 in it, which the Chevrolet Corvair was Chevrolet's first venture into making a compact car, for one, because they never had done that, and two, they did air-cooled with it, so it's an air-cooled flat 6 they all had, and it's also the only rear-engine vehicle that Chevrolet ever made. And yeah, and to be honest, the original Beetles are, and what's kind of interesting, because when I say original Beetles, I mean the not that they were actually technically out in 38, like, they had made a couple, whatever else, but there's none that really exist from 1938. But that's when the initial design was approved by Adolf Hitler. Because, fun fact, yes, the Volkswagen Beetle was commissioned by Adolf Hitler back in the day. And then the British, actually, when they took over, sort of Germany, whatever else, and they found the factory, they found this little Beetle in there. And they kind of reverse engineered the car and produced it through Volkswagen. And so that's kind of how the Beetle was born in 1946 for the mass market. But the initial design is from 1938. So, and the Volkswagen Beetle was supposed to be this car for the people. And that's what actually Volkswagen stands for, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like car of the people. And there were, like, factories during World War II in Germany that if you met a certain quota or whatever, you would get a Volkswagen Beetle. But they actually, from what I've heard, they never actually went through with that. And so all these people kind of got ripped off and whatever else like that and didn't get their free Beetle in the end. So it is very disappointing for them, but it is what it is, and that's welcome to tyrannical... because he wasn't... he may as well have been a dictator, technically, but, it wasn't a dictatorship, but it was. It's kind of odd that way. But, yeah, being a fascist and all that stuff. So it is interesting how seeped in history the Volkswagen Beetle actually is. And the one thing is, with the Volkswagen Beetle, that original silhouette that everybody knows, like everybody knows an original style Beetle, right? They've had a few variations throughout the years. You know, like the early ones had a really small back ovular window. They had a split rear window as well. I believe the earliest ones were a split window. Then they went to the regular oval window, and then they went to the big window in the late '60s. And so on and so forth. And they changed headlights and taillights and signal lights and all the different stuff. And fun fact, actually, the earliest Beetles out there don't have proper signal lights. What they have instead are something called semaphores, which semaphores are an early version of a signal light. And basically all it was out of the protruding the body, it was usually on the A pillar or the B pillars on the car, which is your center pillar. And it would it was on a swing arm that when you pressed it, it would light up and it would come out to signal that, hey, you're turning, right? And it's such a cool concept, to be honest. And there were quite a few cars that had that back in the day. And it's just a very, very cool thing. When you see semaphores, it is such a neat thing. But, you know, they got phased out by the 50s by just regular old signal lights, you know, that just flash normally and no big deal, and it's less engineering involved, as opposed to a semaphore, which takes quite a bit to figuring out, you know, the whole swing action of the arm and everything, and all the extra sort of engineering involved to do that when you turn on your signal light, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a cool precursor to that. And so, yeah, like, and that's the one thing with the Beetle is they made the Beetle from, I believe it was 1946, right up until, what was that, 2010 or 2011 in Mexico, actually. So, you can still buy, I think it was then, it may have been a little earlier than that, I'm trying to remember for sure, but it is the car with the longest life cycle. That's exactly how you spell semaphores, yes. And, I mean, I like the newest Beetle in one variation, though. Is if you have the, what is it called? If you have the Dune Beetle in that sort of brownish tan, like that, I think that looks really cool like that. A regular new Beetle, I don't care about. And when the new Beetle 2.0 came out in, I think it was 99, those have grown on me throughout the years, and what's cool is they actually made some really cool versions of those. Like, the coolest version they made was a Beetle called, it was, you know, the new Beetle 2.0 TSI, which this little car had a bit of a wide body on it, had a big spoiler on the back. The motor was built up to about 220 horsepower or something like that. It hauled ass. And they were also all-wheel drive as well. So it was really, really neat. They built this. Very limited numbers, and I believe only in Europe. So, unfortunately, we tend to never get the really cool cars over here that way. Now, because TSI, I know it's something to do with turbo. I'm not sure what the S actually stands for, but injection. So, turbocharged injection, but I don't know what the S stands for. And what's kind of interesting is, if you've heard of TSI before, potentially, from the brand Eagle, which was what AMC became once Chrysler picked up AMC. Like when Chrysler bought AMC in 1987, and the one thing is they immediately just destroyed AMC and created a brand called Eagle, which was mostly some rebadged Mitsubishis, and you had some, yeah, mostly just rebadged Mitsubishis, except for there was like one car which was called the Eagle Vision, which was a Chrysler Intrepid. But a cooler looking Intrepid though. And the TSI version had a 3.5 that V6 that produced 250 horsepower, I believe. It actually went pretty good. But what's interesting about the Eagle Vision and the Chrysler Intrepid, or Dodge Intrepid, I should say, is that is actually, because I don't know if you know this, Chrysler bought Lamborghini in, what was that, 80, no, 90 or 91, maybe even earlier than that. It may have been 89. I can't remember the exact year. But Lamborghini had a bunch of concept designs that they were thinking of doing whatever else. And one happened to be this four-door car. Now, that four-door concept actually became the Intrepid and the Eagle Vision. The Eagle Vision is the closest one to that original Lamborghini concept. And it's also the most aerodynamic. Because it's kind of interesting that it's a very slippery car. The Eagle Vision TSI has a drag coefficient of, I think it's like 0.31, which is actually very, very slippery throughout the air. And because most cars out there, like to give you an idea, my 81 Mustang has a drag coefficient of 0.44. So, which is not, that's not slippery at all. It's practically a brick going down the road. But fun fact, to that point, that was the most aerodynamic car Ford had ever built. Because even a Ford GT40 wasn't as aerodynamic as you would think. Even though they did sort of testing whatever else with aerodynamics, et cetera, et cetera. It looks like this very aerodynamic thing, but it's actually not. Kind of like a Lamborghini Countach. You see this wedge that's like that far off the ground, and you think, hey, that's a really slippery car. No. Those things are like 0.61. They're terrible. But, you know, it's one of those things. And to be honest, an AMC Gremlin would be fun. Which, interestingly enough about the Gremlin, is the AMC Gremlin was America's first subcompact hatchback. It beat the Pinto to market by, I think it was 2 months. So, and the Vega as well, because the Vega and the Pinto came out very close to each other. The Gremlin was a little earlier. Kind of like when everybody talks about the first pony car being the Mustang. Well, I mean, the Mustang was the better pony car, and the pony car was born out of the Mustang, so I get why they say that. But technically, the first pony car wasn't the Mustang. It was actually, in 1964, the Plymouth Valiant Barracuda beat out the Mustang coming to market by a few months. Actually, I think it was 6 weeks is when that came out, and it wasn't really that sexy of a car or anything like that. You could get a V8 in them, like a 273. V8 didn't really produce a lot of power or anything like that, but to be fair, first year Mustang with a 260 really didn't produce that much power either, so there's that. The Valiant Barracuda was the sort of hatchback design, and they were cool, but they didn't have the style and the awesomeness of the Mustang. And that's why the Mustang sold so many, and to this day, the Mustang is still the fastest selling car of all time. Nothing has ever come close. Because, what did they sell in the first day? Like, it was 470,000 or something like that? I'm trying to remember. I'd open it up on the computer and search it up for you guys, but my computer's frozen, so. But yeah, it's something, it's a very big number regardless. And, you know, and the Mustang's cool. Like, I love Mustangs, obviously. I mean, I've got 2 up front. Um, and the Valiant, because it's kind of interesting, people don't realize that the Plymouth Barracuda was a trim model off of the Plymouth Valiant, which was like the Dodge Dart, your Dodge A-body platform, which is the smaller. That was Dodge's smallest platform at the time until they came out with the Dodge Colt, which was just a Mitsubishi Colt that was rebadged. Actually, I think it was Mitsubishi Mirage that was rebadged. And then there was the Plymouth Cricket, which people tend to forget, except for the Plymouth Cricket is the one you don't want. Because for whatever reason, the Dodge is a Mitsubishi and it's a fantastic car. Even though they look the same between the Plymouth Cricket and the Dodge Colt, the Plymouth Cricket is actually a Hillman Avenger, which is a little British car, and it's not a good car. Great if you want to make a hot rod out of it, which most people did with the Dodge Colts back in the day. They would put big old 426 Hemis in them, or 440s, or 383s, or whatever, a V8, put big tubs under the back, and just make these things such a monster. So much so that there was actually a time when tracks would ban the use of Dodge Colts for a while because they were just so dangerous. They have since rescinded that, but now there's just certain rules they have to follow to make cars that fast. And yeah, it is kind of interesting that way to see that. There we go. But like the one thing is actually something that's cool is because I found this car for sale. It's not a lot of money, and it looks to be in okay shape. Because actually, you saw that because you actually I think you commented or you liked the post. I can't remember on my personal Facebook page. But I found this 1970, I think it was a 70, Chrysler Imperial. Now, what's interesting about the Chrysler Imperial is the Imperial was Chrysler's top vehicle for the longest time. And actually, Imperial, at one point, was its own manufacturer. Under the Chrysler Group, it was actually higher than Chrysler. And so the one thing is, that makes them so unique, it's, yes, that one. It's white, it had a vinyl top on it, but it's not really there anymore. And it's kind of hurting a little bit, but it's cool. Because the interesting part about those is there is so much bracing underneath of those. Because I can't remember what style of frame they have, but it's like, for what I can remember, it's super, super thick for one. And two, like, even looking at the bracing underneath. So, the bumpers. Now, I've only seen underneath a convertible one in one of Hoovie's Garage actually bought an Imperial convertible from the late 60s, I believe. I think it was 66. I could be wrong on that. But regardless. So he buys this car, and when they have it up on the hoist, they were so surprised looking at it of how much bracing there was. I'm like, yeah, the bumpers, the front and rear bumpers, had 6 supports in them. Which is just way overkill. You don't need that many supports in a bumper at all. You can just do 2 really big ones. But instead, they did a bunch of really small ones plus your 2 big ones. It's just wild, right? All the stiffening in the frame or whatever else on these as well. And that's why that you entered that car into a demolition derby, you won. You just won because there was nothing tougher than that car. And plus, old Chrysler big blocks, the RB blocks, are fantastic. It's kind of hard to kill one. You know, you can kill them, but they're not an easy thing to kill. So, you know, your old 413s, your 383s, your 440s, really amazing motors. And yeah, there was actually, it came to a point where Chrysler Imperials were winning, and there was people using the same car for like, 1 or 2 years straight and going to demolition derbies every weekend and winning, and still using the same car over and over and over again. Well, a lot of demolition derbies realized this and actually banned the use of a Chrysler Imperial because it just won every time. So it's the only point that I know of that an actual car has been banned from demolition derbies. So it is kind of interesting that way. And now you see mostly people using full-size Chryslers and Crown Vics and whatever else, right? But it was just kind of a little cool little snippet of history that way. And that's basically what I know about the Imperials. They're so cool. And up to a certain year, 1970, they weren't hand built anymore, but I think it was pre 1968, it's like 67 and back, if I'm not mistaken, that they were fully hand built. So, and the cars were so expensive that they were about on par or more expensive than your Rolls Royces, your Bentleys, all that different stuff back then, right? But if we want to talk about actually an obscure American car that does have that distinction of being the most expensive car built at the time, was, what year was that? 1954, maybe? I'm trying to remember. It was the 50s for sure. And it was actually Ford. Or, I shouldn't say it. It wasn't Ford technically. It was Lincoln. And now, you may have heard of the Lincoln Mark series. You know, they made the Lincoln Mark III, Mark IV, Mark V, Mark 6, Mark 7, Mark 8. And those are very synonymous with Lincoln, right? And they stand out quite a bit, whatever else. You know kind of the Lincoln Mark series when you see them for the most part. The Lincoln Mark 8, you might not know to see it, but they are a really neat looking car and almost nothing looks like it. But they are cool though. But the most expensive car, because I believe it was 1954, but I could be wrong on that. It may have been 56, but again, it's just my years are a little foggy at the moment with that. But the Lincoln Mark II, I said it was either 54 or 56, I can't remember, was a car that cost 14,000 US dollars. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but considering, take a 55 Chevy 150 sedan, your base model Chevy, right, at the time. That was only like an $800 or $900 vehicle, if that even. I think it was even cheaper than that. So when you see a Lincoln Mark II, which they do pop up every now and then for sale, sometimes people will say, yeah, this was the most expensive car built back then. It was over $14,000, and they were a fully hand-built car, and they kind of look, if you squint, they kind of look like a Ford Thunderbird that's been stretched and kind of has, like, stretched in just about every dimension. Like, they're taller, they're longer, and they're wider, right? That's the best way I could describe a Lincoln Mark II. Of like, and when I say the Thunderbird, I mean the first generation Thunderbird, the 55 through 57. So yeah, I believe the Lincoln styling was first, and then they brought up the Thunderbird in 55, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, it's just kind of a really cool sort of snippet into history that way, and just into the canals of my mind of knowing this crap. Because a lot of the stuff that I know, you almost never need to know. But there's so much information in my head that it's just really neat, and I do hold on to that quite a bit, more than most people. And when I learn something about a car, I tend to not forget it. I might get some of the small details wrong, like potentially years and whatnot, but the actual information, I tend to retain that very well. And it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of stuff in life that I forget, but cars are just not one of them. And I wouldn't change that for the world. Oh, definitely. Like, that is the interesting thing, and it's just like something else too is sorry, my mind blank for a second there. Fun fact: Chevrolet, you might know, of course, the small block Chevy, right? Small block Chevy came out in 1955 in the what size was that? It wasn't the 283 because that was 57. It was like a 260. Trying to remember. Regardless, it may have been a two. I can't remember the exact engine size that the original small block Chevy was. But the thing is, everybody knows small block Chevy, and as soon as you think that, you think of 350 cubic inch, right? Because that is the most common small block Chevy out there is the 350. And they made the 350 in trucks pretty much the same way. They slightly changed the block and whatever else to, when they went to the Vortec design in the 90s and blah, blah, blah. But they're still basically the same engine. With some revisions, of course. And, and you would think, 350, that's GM only, whatever else. Well, you'd be wrong. Because Chrysler actually made a 350 before Chevrolet did. And the 350 that I'm talking about, it's kind of interesting because if you've ever seen the movie Christine with the 1958 Plymouth Fury in that movie, that car had a 1 year only engine that was a 350 cubic inch motor. And it was a Chrysler design. Again, 1 year only. I don't believe they were a Hemi. I think they were just a base VA, which Chrysler didn't really do. They did a lot of Hemis. If I'm not mistaken, it may have been a Hemi, but I don't think it was. I'm trying to remember for sure. I know they were had golden valve covers and a golden block too, which was kind of weird because Chrysler is known for their blue blocks and their orange blocks. So, but that was in the 60s, right? So in the 50s, it was a little different with the cars. And because I believe they had red blocks and gold blocks and they didn't do orange until the 60s. So, but yeah, so that car actually has a 350, not a Chevy 350, a Dodge 350. And, it's kind of a cool thing. And, I like those weird, obscure facts like that. I can't tell you why I remember that stuff, but I do. So, it is what it is. Yeah, actually, I'm noticing that my viewers are going up and down, up and down. We're currently at 4, which we have 1 like, which I can see right there, but 4 viewers. We should have 4 likes with 4 viewers. That'd be awesome if you did, like the video. But if not, no worries. But when you like the video, it helps me out a little bit. Whatever else, it doesn't cost you anything. And yeah. So yeah, that is honestly just kind of the obscure facts that I know. So, and actually getting back to that Volkswagen Buggy that I'm going to be trading for, because the thing is, it has the air-cooled flat 6 from a Corvair, right? And I've never actually seen a Corvair swapped Volkswagen before, so this is kind of really cool and up my alley. I've seen Porsche swapped, Beetles and whatever else. That was not common per se, but it was done. And of course, Subaru flat 4s have been very popular to swap into Beetles and buses and whatever else. But yeah, before the Subaru flat 4, though, the kind of common, well, not common, but engine swap of choice for guys was the flat 6 from a 911. It's still air cooled. It's still the same basic design, but a lot more power and 2 more cylinders, right? So, um, yeah, it is pretty neat that way. Um, and those motors, they eventually turbocharged in the late 70s with a 930 turbo, and they were kind of the first car to be considered the Widowmaker. Well, actually, Shelby Cobras were too earlier than that, but 911s were famous for it, more so than other cars because their engine was in the back. So all of the weight is in the back of the car. Now, and the problem with that is once you accelerate hard, all that weight is in the back, right? So your front tires don't have grip anymore because all of the weight is up like this. Because when you launch a vehicle, and you can feel it when you hit hard on the accelerator, you can physically feel the vehicle do this, right? And that's just weight transfer, right? And that's why a lot of vehicles for the longest time were rear-wheel drive because of that whole weight transfer thing, and they thought of traction that way and blah, 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 which it does work, to be honest. Weight transfer in that way works. And I love my rear-wheel drives, I've owned nothing but rear-wheel drive vehicles. Because the Civic is kind of mine, but it's more my dad's vehicle, so yeah, and actually, oh god, really warm in here. I can almost have the AC going, and my cat's gonna run immediately to the window because he just heard it open. Eh? It's 100% what you're doing. Yeah, you're gonna go up to the window? Yep. You kind of see him there, and there he goes. As soon as I open that window, he just comes running. It's just too funny. But yeah, so the original Volkswagen, because it probably would have been a 1600cc engine, may have produced 40 horsepower, which was okay for the time. It wasn't a powerhouse, obviously. It moved the car along very well. Beetles usually didn't reach 60 miles an hour. They were capped at around, depending on how much weight in the car and if it was uphill or not, right around 55 mile an hour or so is where a Beetle tops out, and it takes forever to get there. Where, yeah, my Mustang my 81 Mustang, very slow car, but I can get to 60 miles an hour in about 15 seconds. 14, 15 seconds, somewhere in there. So, yeah, they're not very powerful at all. And the one thing is, because, yeah, with this sort of buggy, because it no longer has a Volkswagen motor, it has a Corvair flat 6, which I don't know which flat 6 it has because there was a couple different ones for the Corvair. They had an actual turbocharged model, which was well over 200 horsepower. It was really actually a very fast car, but people don't really talk about that one. There was, I believe, a 140 horsepower variant, a 160 horsepower variant, and I think it was a 220, if I'm not mistaken, with a turbocharge. It may have been less than that, but I can't remember for sure on the top end one. Because you don't see the turbocharged Corvairs very often. I've seen one in person that I know about. And that was actually at Street Ride for Brandon. So, which was a very, very good show, actually. Hopefully I can make it out to one of those again, but we'll see if I'll be able to or not. Because, yeah, just my health the way it's been. Hey, Saber. Hi, buddy. A big old fat cat is sitting on my dad's chair. Anybody? No, thank you, buddy. I love you. So yeah, so this thing will be a freaking little rocket. If we can get the thing running, whatever else, which we should be able to, because they're very simple motors. Because it's air cooled, so there's no radiator. It will be 12 volt, not 6 volt, but that's still very simple. It'll probably be a points ignition, so points and condenser that are inside the distributor. Again, still a very simple setup. There's no electronics involved. And let's see. Yeah, that's really it. Like, I know that the Corvair motors have their intricacies and they're kind of weird that way, and trying to find parts for a Corvair engine can be a little difficult. But I'm willing to give it a shot to see if I can get the thing running and driving down the road, and it'll be fun. Ooh, nice saying. Whoa, wait. Now, okay. What are you confuzzled about, or? Okay, so the distributors in that kind of like, actually, the Civic is the exact same way. So when you take your distributor cap off of your car, like off of your truck, you'll see actually a little bit of electronics in there, and it's just because it's not that. So, like I mentioned, you pull off your distributor cap in your truck, for example, with the 2.9. If you have that thing, or 2.8, 2.9, I can't remember. You pull that off, you take it off, and you'll see a little bit of wires and whatever else for electronics that way, because you have an electronic ignition. But before electronic ignitions, we had a points and condenser system, which it's all mechanical. It's a very, very simple setup. I'm not even sure how to explain points and condenser, because I don't even know if I fully understand how it works. Like, I do know how it works, but not well enough to actually explain it. But honestly, very simple. And most people that, well, if they're used to electronic ignition, they won't be able to figure out a points ignition. It's just, but points are much simpler than electronic. And that's why points ignitions were used for so long. Like, the 78 Civic has a points ignition. And whenever somebody talks about that, it means non-electronic ignition, right? If you've watched Roadkill, for example, whatever else, they'll talk about points ignition every now and then. Most vehicles now, well, actually all vehicles are electronic ignition now, and have been since about the late 70s for the most part. But there were some vehicles that were still using points even after that. Because I think the Lotta Riva still had points in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. Again, but not very many models still carried points. A lot of them went over to electronic ignition, because it's a more reliable setup, shall we say? And also, when you change over to point, or from points to electronic, you also tend to gain a little bit of horsepower too, because the electronic ignition can do so much more than the points and condenser can. So it's able to produce a little more voltage, whatever else, that helps you create more power. So yeah, and you get your hotter spark and all that different stuff. So yeah, they are pretty neat. That way, like, points ignition has always kind of fascinated me. Like I said, the Civic has points ignition. I've never really screwed with it too much, but I've gotten that car running without really touching them, so that's kind of nice. I do have a new set of points and condenser for that car, but probably don't need them. So do have them though, in case I ever need to swap it on the side of the road, for example. Which I should be able to figure it out, because it's just getting it set to where it runs. I can figure that out, but will it be optimal? Probably not. But I can usually cobble something together to get it down the road. 9 times out of 10. Well, okay, make it run, and then just detail it, really. And yeah, that's basically all. And then if it needed anything else to get it to where it drives reliably down the road, I'll do that. And then afterwards, I'm not going to keep it as cool as it would be to keep it. I don't know where the hell I'm going to put it. Because even though, yes, the Vruk, I can store technically anything on the Gregs. I know I can, but I don't want to just have his property as free storage for myself. That way, for vehicles that I'm keeping, right? I'd prefer just to use his property when I need to. So, because, yeah, the Vruk is in his lineup right now of vehicles. It's beside the Turismo, which is beside the Shelby Charger, which is beside the Plymouth Cambridge, which is beside the Dodge Crusader, which is beside the Dodge Ram. So, yeah. Ugh. There we go. Whew. So Terry, actually, it's not a Volkswagen Beetle technically, and I don't know what year the Pan is, but the vehicle in question is it's a Meyer style, it's a Myers-Mag style buggy on what we think is a 67 or later chassis, judging by the wheels that are on it. But it's got 64 taillights in it, and it's got a 74 and up column, steering column in it, because it's got the key actually in the column, not on the dash. And I don't really know much about it. I haven't seen it in person, and I know Volkswagens a little bit, but I'm not super savvy with Volkswagens. But I'm going to be trading it for my 81 Ford E350 Triple E Camelot converter. So, yeah, which normally I wouldn't do that trade, but I can't get that Vruk to run. So, getting something that might be, I don't know if it'll be easier to get running, but at least it turns over by hand. We know that because my friend told me about that. So, it'll work. But yeah, and there is one thing that's up in the air though, because it doesn't have its original flat 4 in it. It's got a Corvair flat 6. Is what transmission is in it? Because did they take the transmission from a Corvair, or did they do an adapter plate and use the original Volkswagen transmission? I don't think it'll really matter either way, but if I need parts, that's stuff that'll be nice to know. So it's kind of one of those deals, right? That kind of trying to figure that out or will figure out for sure, because it's going to go, because it's not actually going to come here. It's going to go to my friend's shop first, and he's going to put it up on the hoist probably for me and take some pictures and whatever else and let me know on stuff as much as he can. But yeah, other than that, don't really have too much information on that one. It'll be really neat, and hopefully I can get the thing running, but we'll see, because it's a little bit of an oddity that way. And because we don't know what underneath has been modified to accommodate the Corvair engine, but not only modified to accommodate that, but did they do anything else? Is there a weird one-off custom suspension on it or something like that? Does it have conventional brakes on it from a Beetle, or does it have something custom or whatever, right? Because when you get into somebody's project like that is a little off the wall, you never know what you're gonna find. Which, that's part of the hunt. That's the fun part of this. However, it's also kind of the part where it's just crap, we need to try and find this stuff. But, because the one thing I do know about Volkswagens is how simple they are and how easy to work on they are. Now, with a Corvair engine in it, might make it a little harder to do that. I don't know, right? Because basically, all I'm really going to do with that motor is, okay, fuel filter change out, see about, oddly enough, the fuel tank in it is not up front like it should be. It's actually where the back seat would be. I believe that's the fuel tank now. It's a big fuel tank, so at least that's what it looks like in the pictures. So we'll see how that's gonna go. Oh yeah, no worries. Hopefully you have a fantastic sleep and have a good day at work tomorrow. And I will chat at you soon. Oh my god. God, my damn health that way. Whew. And my face looks a little red after that, which is not surprising. That kind of hurt. But yeah, so it'll be a cool project, and we'll see if I'll be able to get it on the road or not. I hope so, but we shall see. Because again, everything's up in the air of this little thing. Because yeah, it's possible that because this I could potentially lose my ass on, but I don't have a lot of money into what I am trading for it, so it's not so bad. That way, that I probably won't end up losing money on it. I can, at the very least, break even, which is good. But I think I should be able to make money on it no matter what. And now, because the one thing is, the body that's on it is not actually a proper Myers mix. There's too many things that are wrong on it. Like the windshield frame, for example, kind of looks like it's out of a Willys Jeep, for example. It doesn't have the correct mirrors on it. Actually, I don't believe it has any mirrors. And I don't know if there were mirrors on this one or not. So it may have just had a rear view mirror. Even though it should have had the 2 mirrors on the sides. Or 1 mirror, potentially. But, I don't know. Because, yeah, it's something that we'll have to... Once I see it, because I haven't seen this car in person. I've only seen pictures. And I'm just rolling the dice with it to see if this will be a viable project. So, we'll see. But it'll be cool, and hopefully I can get it running and then, enjoy it for like a week and then move it on to its next owner, hopefully. So, fingers crossed, it'll all work out that way. Because potentially next weekend I might get it. It definitely is, but I don't... That's the one thing about me, though, is I don't do anything normal that way. Like, the most normal thing I have is my 86 Mustang convertible with a 302 in it and a C5 automatic. That's the most normal that I have at the moment. Because my 81 Mustang has an inline 6 in it and is a little oddball because of that. And I like oddball. The weirder, the better for me. That way. Just like my friend Olivia, she has a YouTube channel called Liv Scafidi. Can never remember her last name. I'd have to find it. But anyways, so she has a YouTube channel, and she actually has she picked up a few months ago a 1967 Pontiac Tempest, 2-door, cool car. The one thing is, though, it has the weird engine in it. Because normally you saw those with V8s and whatever else. This has the inline 6, but it's not a Chevy inline 6, it's a Pontiac inline 6. And this is a Pontiac 250 inline 6 that's an overhead cam. So it was GM's first overhead cam engine ever. And the motor wasn't made for too long. It was only a few years. Like, I think it was from 1967, 66 or 67 until I think 1970 or 71, and then they got rid of the engine design. They had their problems, and hers definitely has issues too, because she got it running, but it's knocking. So she's gonna allow us to swap it. I mean, her thing is LS swapping whatever else, and I get that. And power to her. You know what? You're getting a car back on the road. It's cool. Like me personally, I would love to have one of those motors to play with because they're such a cool design. But I mean, if it's knocking, I don't really have the money to rebuild an engine. So there's that. I don't really have a lot of money at all. Oh my god. Okay. That's getting tiresome. Actually, that's one thing I want to check. Where's my heart rate at? Because with the health issues I have, like my stuff has been all over the place. Okay, and okay, that's better than it was. Much better actually. So I'm gonna make that work. Cool. Yeah, so that's just kind of how I am and whatever else, and you know, um, yes and no. Like I will be fine, but my health is kind of really screwed up. Um, that cough is just that's kind of my normal cough actually. So, um, I'm asthmatic, so that's one of the reasons why my cough sounds like that. Which is not fun, but it is what it is. I have heart problems and whatever else, and that I've been battling forever. That's why I was actually just checking my heart rate with this, and actually, I should check where is my blood pressure at. I feel fine for the most part concerning that, but let's see. That's the cool part about new technology is you can check. Like, this is one of the few smartwatches I've seen that you can actually check your blood pressure with. See, so where it says. No, actually, that's good blood pressure. So there we go. Now, actually, I want to do a test here. Apologies, this is just taking me a second because I do want to do a little test with this thing. Do one more. There we go. Actually, since I've been wrenching on cars, it's only been 3 years. Yeah, so, to be honest, because I never really had an opportunity when I was younger to really wrench on cars too much. And because my dad never really had, like, projects or anything like that. And he didn't really work on his vehicles too much, so I am 100% self-taught. I have, like, my 81 Mustang I've rebuilt from the ground up, mostly by myself. I did have some help with some things. And I did ship it out to shops and whatever else for a couple other things and whatever else. And, my buddy Roy has helped out a couple times on some stuff. But, oddly enough, Roy, because Roy Markle, fantastic guy, to be honest. Haven't talked to him in a while. I'll probably send him a text to say hi. Maybe tomorrow. I'll do that. Because he actually helped me out on a couple of things in the car, because with I have LED sequential taillights in the car, and the one thing was trying to figure out how these exactly work, because the instructions weren't great for when I got them, because they were kind of a custom build thing, and, like, great quality, don't get me wrong, but the instructions just weren't that clear, so we kind of just figured it out as we went. And, yeah, he helped me with those, and then the 2-barrel engine swap I shouldn't say 2-barrel engine swap, the 2-barrel carburetor swap and the timing chain, he helped me out with that too. So, yeah, which was honestly a great time. I love working on cars with Roy. It's fantastic. We haven't done it in a while. I would love to have, like, a project with him. That'd be so cool. And if we lived closer together too. But that's okay. I don't get to see him very often because he's up in Edmonton. I'm down here in Sundry, and usually when I'm up there, I go to my buddy Keith's place just because he has a lift and his shop is really nice that way. And usually Roy's fairly busy too, so I could usually drop in anytime on Roy. Don't get me wrong, but he's usually just a little busier than Keith is. But yeah, actually, I've been going for over an hour now. Only currently have 2 viewers, which I definitely appreciate y'all for sticking around to the end. But I think I'm going to end the live stream here. Thank you all so much for watching. Oh, hang on. Oh, yes. That's the one thing, actually, because I will mention to that comment there, is concerning the knowledge on cars. Because the one thing is, I am fully enveloped by cars. That is my entire life. I love just about anything involving cars. And I retain the knowledge quite well when it comes to vehicles as well. And that's usually something that people don't have as much knowledge as me typically. And it's just one of these things where I'm able to kind of grasp onto that and really hold on to it and not let it go. So, yeah, so that's the one thing. And because I know so many little details about stuff, but it all adds it up to a lot. I will always love it, and it's my main sort of passion, whatever else like that. It's one of those deals, and I wish I had more knowledge. Don't get me wrong, because there is some stuff on cars that I don't know. I will fully admit there are people out there that know more than I do, at least mechanically know more than I do, and there's even people out there that know more than I do. For example, somebody like Steve Maniante. He knows a hell of a lot more than I do with just weird one-off facts. Because he's more in tune with it than I am, but I still know quite a bit too. But he's also been doing it for a lot longer. I'm only 26. He's a lot older than that. So, yeah. Oh, God. Still can't believe I did that earlier. I hit myself in the face really hard with my phone earlier. Not intentionally, but I was swiping at, there was a wasp. And all of a sudden, I hit the corner perfectly on my face, and I actually left a good-sized bruise. So, that's fun, actually. Will that show up on camera? Kind of. You can kind of see it there. Doesn't show up very well, but, yeah, I will admit, I don't recommend that. Not at all. But, anyways, so, like I was saying before, I will end this here, because I could ramble on for hours, to be honest, but, yeah, so anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Good night, all.